Dear friends, the Balkan Forum is starting today a series of discussions with academics, analysts and experts, civil society actors, diaspora and media representatives from Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Serbia and EU member states. We will be exploring opportunities and challenges on various social, political and economic issues with the aim of advancing regional dialogue and collaboration, internal reforms, and EU integration and accession of the Western Balkans region. Today, we will be discussing about different scenarios and possible impact of the EU elections in the enlargement process, with a focus on EU integration and accession and internal reforms of the countries of the Western Balkans, and measures that may be needed to be introduced by the Western Balkans to build on momentum, as well as to respond to possible challenges that the future setup of the EU Parliament and institutions may bring, including on the EU agenda and priorities in relation to the Western Balkans. I have the great pleasure to welcome well-known journalists, Aida Cerkez from Bosnia and Herzegovina, Senka Vlatkovic Odavic from Insjader, sitting in Belgrade, Serbia, and Lavdim Hamidi, editor-in-chief at Zeri, Pristina, Kosovo. Welcome to all of you. Thanks very much for joining us for this conversation. It is going to be very short, 45 minutes for a big question and very complex environment that we are talking about. I believe this is one of many conversations that are taking place and will take place in the future in terms of how countries of the Western Balkans respond to the changes in the EU. So let's go with the first question. How big do you think of a priority will be the EU enlargement of the Western Balkans after the parliamentary elections that took place between 23rd and 26th of May 2019?
Asking whom?
So who will? Asking whom?
Aida, can we start with you?
Why me all the time? The EU has a long time ago stopped being the sweet carrot it once was. Right after the Yugoslav wars, it was actually the only goal, the only bright future, the only light at the end of the tunnel that many citizens of the Western Balkans have seen. Meanwhile, the pretty, should I say, the not very decisive politics that the European Union has presented to us toward the Western Balkans and toward the issue that bother the Western Balkans, toward nationalism, toward human rights, and many other issues, that the EU has paid lip service to, but has really not backed any of the ideologies firmly, is now coming back as a boomerang to the EU. Namely, the EU is more getting Balkanized than the Western Balkan is getting Europeanized. Maybe not, maybe it's actually mutual. The idea was for the Western Balkans to adopt the values of the European Union, which are, I have to say, the most advanced values in the world, in history, I think, when it comes to human rights and everything else. But more and more, those values are eroding in the European Union, and we can see it. It started with Greece, with all the lying about money. It went on, and now we have Hungary and various right-wing movements that we thought are impossible in the EU. And therefore, I think that the EU has much more to do in its own backyard. And it will focus really on that, on curing itself, rather than trying to accept new members that it perceives as problematic. And I must say, you know, most of the problems the EU has do not come from its new members, but from its old members. Greece is not a new member. Okay, Hungary is, but the EU itself has to really struggle in the next couple of years to defend its own values on its own turf. And it will concentrate less on how to spread those outside of the Union so that the countries that have applied, that aspire to join the Union, can also join. So I'm pretty pessimistic. I don't think that expanding EU membership is going to be a priority in the next couple of years.
Senka, Lavdim, what are your opinions, your views on the same question?
So I agree with Aida. At this moment, it seems that enlargement of the will not be the priority, even after this election. The conclusion is the European Union is still looking for a model for boosting alliance itself to be a stronger inside. And one model was proposed by French President Emmanuel Macron. And I am pessimistic too. I think that European Union will not take the risk with expanding until this is achieved, this boosting alliance, if it is their possibility at all. Europe is trying to strengthen internal security and democracy as well. I'm not sure that is it could be in the same time, but okay, therefore it's unlikely that EU will be open for countries that are far more insecure and unstable in economic terms too. When you're talking about Greece, why they want a new Greece or the biggest problem. And I believe that it would be less likely that EU would be interested in enlargement that includes country without clear borders. We don't know our borders at all. We're talking about that basic stuffs. And the problem is also that the country of Western Balkan, not to talk only about the European Union, let's talk about us. Even the leaders, we were talking before this about the leaders in Western Balkan. Some of them say, yes, we want to be a part of European Union, but also in those when that attitude is not so clear, we have a problem. Good wishes, so they said we want to go and we want and something like that, but it's not. It is not enough. You know, we have a big problem inside our countries, and I believe that European Union don't want our problems in the Union. So I believe that the biggest problem is the key message from the leaders. Our leaders, when they're talking about European values, they said something like it's a blackmailing. It's I can't say that. It is the main message we hear. Rarely you can hear about those values that present certain set of rules or something like that. It's very important for the citizens. So when you're looking at the latest report for Serbia, European Commission made it. It isn't. You can clearly read that it's not sufficiently dedicated to setting out these key rules. So I don't believe that enlargement because of the situation in EU, but it's more important because unpreparedness of majority of the Western Balkan countries.
Lavdim?
Thank you, Rasmus. In times which Euroscepticism is on rise through Europe, and European member states, EU enlargement is a topic difficult to discuss, I think. I think European leaders have made the mistake of treating the region as irrelevant until now, because with more stable region, also the Europe is more stable. While countries such as Albania or North Macedonia are waiting to open date of negotiation, Kosovo is the only country in Balkans without visa liberalization. We cannot travel freely to Europe because we had no ratified demarcation with Montenegro, and low results regarding fighting corruption and organized crime. Then we need to talk about EU enlargement because we still have no visa liberalization, but also looking in the case of Albania and North Macedonia, also I'm skeptical too about this EU enlargement process.
And why do you think that is the reason? I think you touched upon that, but there seems to be some contradiction. If we are looking at the country reports, or previously known as progress reports, and the rhetoric, let's say, more than what in reality was happening with the EU or clear perspective for the Western Balkans to join the EU. Now, is it that we have had like misleading or the expectations were false or were high? Or was it that rhetoric that was used in relation to joining the EU, or on the other side from the EU, that Western Balkans has a clear perspective, then it has created a lot of confusion?
But they have a right to do that.
Okay, but we, in fact, I mean, are we saying ourselves that sometimes when we see the progress or country reports, there is a lot of criticism even on that? Like, people sometimes feel, civil society feel, media feel that it may not be completely realistic, because we know that corruption is high, organized crime is doing its role. We know that health system, educational system is not very strong and not quality. And so, but you don't see them featuring very strongly in the report.
Can I?
Yeah.
Please, Aida.
Okay. I would really recommend everybody not to get carried away with this EU accession. First of all, the EU has its own problems, but that's fine. But what the EU is for us, at least for me, it's a set of values that I am seeking to live with. It's a world where certain values and certain laws are operational that allow people to live a decent life. Now, whether the EU wants to take us soon or late or never is less relevant than us aspiring to implement those rules. Yeah. We are aspiring, we want to join the EU because of their values, because of their laws, because of the way of life they have created for themselves. And we want to be part of that. Fine, if we can't be part of that right away because they have their own problems, why can't we simply adopt ourselves those values and those laws and create those kind of relations? And then we're going to decide whether we're going to join EU at all. You know, I don't care about this formal membership. I don't want to be a EU member like Bulgaria is, or like Romania is, or let alone like Hungary is. I want the values that are in France, in Germany. I want the way of life, the standard and the values because of which people from my country are emigrating.
Yes.
And they're not going because this is the EU. They're going because there are jobs and their human rights and their standards over there, whether it is the EU or not. And let me tell you, most of them aspire actually to go to Norway or Sweden, which are not even EU members. So people are seeking a better life. And it's not important whether you're EU member or not, and whether EU wants us or not. What we want, we can have. It's all on paper. You can download it. They're all of their laws, and you can pass them and have them here where we are. What's wrong with that? And then we will see whether we want to join the EU or not. Maybe we won't. Maybe we will be better, and they will want to join us. Who knows? You know. But it is the values that and the standard of living and the relationships between us. But if we go on and continue to argue whether we should exist as countries, if we question our borders, if we don't talk to each other at all, and as long as we have the people right in our neighborhood who can't even travel, you know, they're not even recognized as a country. They're a region of another country. In some people's minds, in their own mind, they're a country, and then there are other countries in the region that recognize them as a country, or don't have any diplomatic. I can't even go to Pristina. What are you talking about? What values? What EU membership? Imagine you're Brussels, and you're looking down at us, and there are people living next to each other that don't even recognize each other's existence. Why can't we fix that without the EU? I tell you why. Because of the decades-long propaganda,
yes,
that has convinced our citizens that we are, as a group, better than the others. This type of propaganda is, of course, launched by politicians who have their own interest in launching it. But we are the media. Here's a journalist from Belgrade right in front of me. There's another one from Pristina right in front of me. We are the mouthpiece. We, as the media, are actually their instrument. And this whole thing started with media in general. I know my war in Bosnia and Herzegovina started with the takeover of frequencies and of television towers. And this is how it's going to end. And it's not even close to ending. It is the propaganda that keeps, now even politicians in Belgrade are trapped in their decades-long propaganda. They don't dare to tell the Serbs that Kosovo is gone. It will never come back. It will not come back. They know that, but they're afraid to say it, because you're going to lose elections next time, because your party was the one that convinced for decades the population that this cannot happen. And now it's happening, and you don't know, and they don't know how to deal with it. And this is where we're stuck. Enough from me.
Lavdim, Senka, on the same question.
I again agree with Aida.
This is a totally fruitless discussion. Everybody agrees with everybody.
Yeah, when we are talking about Serbia, the logical answer for the what we can do this moment to be a part of the EU, when you ask that in Belgrade, the logical answer would be resolve the Kosovo issue, and everything will be fine. No, I really don't think that it could be happen. I think that you're talking about standards and compliance with the rules. When we are talking about the rules we need to respect, we are talking in numbers, you know, chapter 23 and chapter 24. We're not talking about the essence of that, you know. I believe that there is some eruption or one big step will solve our problems. You know, let's look at the Macedonia case. You know, they make a big step after the decades. They finally has a name of the state which are recognized. But what is my fear? I'm afraid that everything could go at the wrong way, in a completely opposite direction of EU membership or getting the rules and implementing the rules. I'm afraid leaders in the Western Balkan could again decide to cause the crisis, to get the attention, to attract the attention of EU. When you look the Western Balkans for 3 decades, you can see that Balkan country behave like a little child who draw the attention with tears, you know, or with the breaking the valuable family object or something like that. We are just ruined. It's a historical moment, you know. Every time we have a historical moment. No, it is not the historical moment. It is the totally normal moment. We need to make the few very important moves forward to make a normal country. The country, as Aida said, we want to live. We don't want to live in countries, and our citizens don't want to live in countries as Serbia in this moment, or as Bosnia, Kosovo. Montenegro is a little better, it's smaller and it's easier. But I believe that we are the journalists. We are the journalists, and we need to do our jobs. I believe that many journalists, and Aida, you're completely right. The propaganda, but it's not the political propaganda, it's the propaganda from medias. It is the biggest problem. We have a problem with our leaders, but we have a problem with our colleagues too, or people who want to be our colleagues, who called themselves journalists. They're propagandists in not this moment. You know, when the war started, we have the journalists who were in the first line of the hate. So I believe that we have a huge problem to understanding everything, and now we can see the nationalism, sometimes higher, sometimes lower intensity, but it's still in here. Own interests, low intensity conflict all the time. After the war doesn't stop. You have low intensity conflict every time when something happens. You know, migrant crisis. Serbia and Croatia hate themselves. You know, I don't know. It is the problem. So if we imagine Kosovo problem solved, I believe that nobody of us can say that after that we have a higher salary or believe in judiciary and have a greater freedom of speech or something like that. So it is we need to present to our citizens that there is some rules very important for them, and if they want to play that game, they need to respect that rules, like in any other sport than in a political.
Okay, Lavdim.
Yes, we all of us know that we cannot be part of Europe without solving our problems with our neighbors, without solving problems with Serbia, with Bosnia and Herzegovina. Even Aida said that we cannot travel to Bosnia, and we are asking to travel to Europe, Germany or France. We are here because we have a lot of problems with our neighbors, and we are in the same situation regarding corruption. In Kosovo is corruption in high level, and we have no visa liberalization just because of corruption. We are not part of Europe just because of corruption. Until now, the situation was same when international diplomats started to block all politicians who are corrupted not to go to travel to United States, for example, or Great Britain, because until now only citizens suffer from this situation, not politicians, because they have diplomatic passports and can travel freely to Europe, United States. Therefore, the situation needs to change, and some leaders change, some ministers who have some background corruption since yesterday.
Because there were allegations against them for corruption and crime related as well. But let me ask you another question. If we are saying let's focus on our agenda, I think this is what I'm hearing, and I completely agree. Let's focus on having a sound rule of law system. Let's do the good education, quality education. Let's have a good health system. Let's have a decent life. Let's fight organized crime. Do we believe that that will happen if, for now, we know that EU integration will take longer? Do you really believe that that EU will have the same level of leverage as it used to have until now? If that prospect of joining EU is moving a bit far from what we expected?
I don't think that EU membership is even something people talk about anymore. It is what people are talking about is rule of law, standard of living, economy, and so on, not very much in the context of joining the EU, because they don't really see this coming very soon. And I agree with that. And I am actually very supportive of ideas like, let's fix our country regardless of the EU. But I think that the main problem all of our countries have, is the definition of national interest. Everybody acts in the national interests, or should act in that. What is that? Is the national interest of Serbia to keep Kosovo under any circumstances? Is the national interest of Kosovars to be independent no matter what? Is the national interest of the Bosniaks to keep Bosnia together regardless of the price? What is my national interest? And I don't think that anyone has actually asked that question. I wish there would be a questionnaire, something like a referendum, if you want to, where people, whoever wants to, sit by themselves and answer the question, what is our national interest? First of all, they will be stuck with the question like, what's my nation at all? And then, what is my national interest? And if they really answer, my national interest is not to recognize Kosovo or to secede from Bosnia, then they will have to explain how that would make their life, how that would improve their lives. And then we will actually know what people really want. For example, I think that my national interest is a very, very high salary in a very secure and functioning country. That I would define that as my national interest, and a high standard of living, and that everybody envies me because of the way I live in other countries. I want the Swedes to come down and say, oh wow, you really have a good life, you know. I want that. I want that kind of that would be my national interest. Now, whether that entails the country falling apart or the country being together, all of us being in the EU or not talking to each other, we have to put that down on paper and see, because and see what we really want. And I can guarantee you that 90% of the people who would get such a question would not know how to answer the questions. Because beyond the term, this is our national interest, they don't really know themselves what that means. To me, national interest is for me to live a good life. That's all. That's all there is. And, you know, but maybe I'm a minority. Maybe I'm the majority. I don't know, because nobody ever asked anybody. The only thing, the only people who are speaking on behalf of the nation and determining the nation's interests are politicians for whom we very often later find out that they actually acted in their own interest and not in the national interest, you know. And just, you know, for the end of the note, I don't really think that people in the Balkans are that corrupt. So there you go. I think we're as corrupt as everybody else.
As corrupt as everybody else.
Right. You know, I work on corruption right now, and the amount of corruption in Denmark, I mean, their oldest bank is suspected of having laundered over 200 billion euros. Come on. You know, you don't even, we have never even seen 200 billion euros. And Denmark is #1 on the transparency list of clean countries. So I'm not convinced that the Balkans is really that corrupt as it is.
We are the most corrupt.
No, we're not.
That's a positive thing to know.
No, we are very.
We have to compare ourselves with somebody else. That's how we know whether we are most corrupt or less corrupt, or equally corrupt, maybe.
No, we are very good people who are trying to solve a very global problem. Globalism against nationalism. This is not only our problem. We are just an arena. And we are just all together really good people who are trying to solve a very, very complex problem that the whole world is dealing with. And we're not more corrupt than others.
I can agree that we are not more corrupt than the others when we are comparing with other regions. But if we're talking with the people, with our citizens, you will see. They will see that they believe that nothing can do in a health system or in a law system without money. So maybe we're not talking about billions, but we are talking about small corruption, very important to ordinary people. So maybe it is not true. Maybe you're right, but we don't have a strong law system. And when we don't believe in judiciary, we don't believe in someone who is truly independent and deciding by the law, we can any chance to present the truth. So maybe we are the better than we are looking when we are seeing us. I don't know. Maybe we are working some corruption affairs for years, and some of them are the basic of that affairs in a communistic system, and the older system after that. We are selling some our big companies, and the corruption is in every step. But when it comes to the court, it lasts for I don't know 10 years or something like that, and you don't have any decision. You're waiting for decision. So we can't say, did we really corrupt society or not? Because we here don't have a real independent decision about that. You're talking about propaganda. And I want to go back to it because I believe it is the huge problem. Maybe the speaking about corruption is one of the part of the propaganda. So when we are talking about main topics, about salary, the salary in Serbia is less than 500,000 euros. And in economic terms, we are poorer than countries in Europe, than Romania, than Hungary. I'm not talking about Sweden or about Germany. So something we need to change. The media must restrain confidence. If the people don't believe in judiciary, they want to believe in something. And in this moment, we need to show them that the only journalist can convey accurate and complete information to citizens. It's a very important because when we're talking in Serbia, the all daily news, not all, but the daily newspapers in many of them, and national coverage TV stations, they're full of propaganda. And then the objective journalists become opposition. They're perpetrators or something like that. We can't change it. We need to live with that, but we can change it. It's not easy, but I believe when we are talking, it could be easier to do in some network, to help each others. Maybe you have a problem to investigate something in Kosovo, but maybe it's easier for me to ask some question and get the answers for you. It could be some good change. I want to make something good.
Can I just say, just before, I recognize that going to the doctor, many people say they had to pay. Yeah. Okay, this is being live broadcast on Facebook. And I want to say that I have never, ever in my entire life paid a bribe to anybody. How's that?
I have never.
Never, ever. I don't even know how, I don't know which language to use, how to say it. You know, here is.
I know that, but we are not the majority, or we are the majority.
No, but here is why. If we continue to interview people who constantly claim that they have to pay, and we never ask somebody who has never paid, then we are creating a mentality in which everybody believes that you have to pay. And I don't have to. I don't really think you have to pay. I never paid, and nobody has ever asked me to pay. How's that? Because most of the time, people go themselves to the doctor and offer without being asked for it. And that can be fixed through media.
Yeah, but in Serbia now it's legally to give 400 euros for the doctors.
It's legal.
Legally.
Okay, then that if it's legal, it's not corruption.
Of course, it's not corruption.
Okay, can we move on to another question, which has to do with the Berlin process? And you know that the last, or at least what we know so far, is the last summit in the series, is the sixth one now, taking place in Poznan. And that will be from 3rd to 5th of July. what are your expectations? Do you think that those summits will continue? And, you know, what have been the benefits, if I can say, so far? In other words, do you think that those summits will continue? And if they do or not, have there been any benefits? What kind of benefits?
Yes, there have been benefits. It didn't fall all apart altogether. It didn't blow up in a full-blown conflict. And I believe that these kind of initiatives are simply just forums for a discussion. And without those, some of us would not be even communicating with each other at all. It takes an outside force to get you to a table somewhere that doesn't belong to anybody in Berlin or wherever, for people to sit on somebody else's turf, to even open their mouth and have a conversation at all. I support any conversation, even arguments. We can sit down in Geneva if you want to and throw hate speech at each other and spit at each other, but at least that's communication. You know, I don't think that, I don't expect these things to solve the problem at once, but I do think that they are always a step forward, and they're always better than not talking at all. And, you know, that's, I'm not expecting now any summits to solve the problem right away. But come on, we have traveled far in the past 20 years. We have come that, don't underestimate the successes. We have had some successes. The world looks completely different than what it looked like during, I don't know, when my mother was working. She doesn't even understand what I'm talking about she is still asking me, like, and is your company going to give you an apartment? You know, I mean, this is, we have traveled a long, look, we went through a triple transition from war to peace, from from planned to market economy, from communism to, or whatever that was, to democracy, all at the same time, with a very traumatized and brainwashed population. I think that we have done a great job within one generation. And if we go on, I don't expect this to be solved in one generation, but I'm sure at the end, we in the Balkans will find a not yet discovered model of how people can, of different nationalities and different interests and different languages, can live in such a small area like the Balkans. And that, if we do that, it'll be applied everywhere else in the world. And that's how optimistic I am. And I'm glad to be part of this historic process.
Okay. Lavdim?
10 days earlier, we still don't know if we are going to meet in Paris in summit, because we still have some question marks. The summit, which is organized by German Chancellor and President Macron, we still don't know if all leaders can meet there. And just because we have some misunderstanding about tariffs in Serbian and Bosnian goods, and there is no progress about this issue. Therefore, we have still some question mark if the summit will be held on 1st of July next month.
So there are many unknowns. I mean,
Yeah.
I agree with Aida. The world has changed, and we have changed with that.
Yeah.
But I think we are facing serious challenges ourselves. Going back to some months ago, in Albania, there are massive oppositional protests that are taking place. MPs, a good part of MPs from the opposition withdrew their own mandates. You have protests in Belgrade, in Serbia, not only Belgrade, but in Serbia, for so many weeks now. But also you have a parliament that does not function well because they cannot agree on many kind of laws and many kind of even sometimes, how do we call the agenda of the parliament, because of these tensions between opposition and position. But we don't see a resolution, and you know, it's a tough situation, and it's a big question to say, what can we do? What can media do? Meaning, what can you do as journalists to basically support some positive developments that turn the countries more into, you know, maybe having a better quality of life and progress more in that EU integration process. One of that was, as you were speaking, that propaganda is big, and then, you know, if we want to do objective media reporting and coverage, then we need to do something, and then maybe we need to work in network, be part of a bigger coalition where people can share experiences and work. But how much can we realistically expect from media and individuals who are courageous, who are world known in an environment where people are threatened, where people are intimidated?
Go ahead, Senka.
I have a problem with network.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I hear you.
We can hear you well,
he's asking with all of the protests that are going on in Albania and in Belgrade.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah. What can we do as media? And my answer would be, we can do two things. We can not cover it, ignore it, and go back to what we called jednoumlje, where everybody is dissatisfied but doesn't dare to open his mouth. We can do that gladly, and we will be perfectly safe. Or we can be the leaders and stand in and step in front of the whole process and report about it, no matter what the consequences are. We entered this profession knowing it's dangerous. It was dangerous. It stays dangerous. It will remain dangerous. It's more dangerous now than it was before, but we can do our jobs and inform the population about what is going on. What the population is going to do about it, it's up to them. But at least, as I always say, nobody later will be able to say, I didn't know. If you didn't know, you chose not to know. It was not because I didn't do my job. That's all we can do. And that's a lot.
Yes, and I believe that we have a really responsibility to our people. Maybe sometimes we are more important than the politicals. More important. We sharing the message.
I always thought that, actually, that I'm more important than politicians.
No, we are. But we need to show to the politicians that.
No, I don't care what they think of me.
I really don't think. Think so.
I don't need to show them anything. I am responsible to the population,
yes,
not to them.
Yes.
You know? So yes. I don't care what they think. You know, I am reporting on them because I am the corrective factor in the society. They answer to me because I answer to the population, and yes, that's the ring. And I don't care what they think.
Yes, we have some silent censorship. We have it now, but it is our problem, and we need to solve it. There is that, sometimes they said we can't work because we have problems. If you have no chance to work, please don't work. But if you want to work in the right way, please.
Yeah. There are other people who are willing to work.
definitely. Lavdim?
They
Yes.
are people.
I agree with you, and we have to do our job in proper way to inform public, not to be in service of government or opposition, because we have a lot of problems in the region. A lot of media are doing their job pro-government in Kosovo, Serbia, in Albania, Bosnia.
Propaganda.
We have to solve this problem.
Very good.
I think the three of us are doing a fine job. Whom we have to invite is people for whom we don't think they're doing a fine job. We have to talk about this with them to hear what they say. I mean, it's kind of repeating, the three of us are repeating the same thing. Perhaps we should go, we should talk to people we don't agree with. That, because that's a dialogue, not this is an echo chamber.
You're right. You're right. But I'm not sure that they want to talk to us.
That's the problem.
Let's try next time. I think that's a good idea as well, Aida. Is there anything, because we are past our time, so we may have one more minute. Is there anything that you would like to add? Something that you had in mind, but you did not find the opportunity to do so during this conversation?
You asking me?
All of you, the three of you, but just briefly.
Okay, first me. I think I said enough. I just don't want everybody to dive into this overall lethargy and pessimism that is keeping the whole region in a grip. We can do this. We're not that bad. We're not the worst people in the world. We're not the most corrupt. It just takes a little bit of effort, and this would be a great place to live. Just imagine if you would be living in a desert where it never rains. At least we have a beautiful country. Let's fix the people.
Yeah.
Thanks
Great.
very much, Aida.
Conclusion.
Senka?
This is a great conclusion. I don't know what to say else. I believe that our citizens have right to decide, go back to the European Union topic. If they want European perspective or not. But our job is to give them the correct information, and so their decision is be objective. So let's believe in our people. I believe the same as Aida. We are not so bad. Some of us are.
Thank you, Lavdim.
Thank you, Astrid, for giving us this possibility to share our opinions with colleagues from Bosnia and Serbia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Aida. Thanks very much, Senka. Thanks very much, Lavdim. I look forward to keeping in touch and continuing this conversation, and maybe expanding to other topics as well, and finding the guys that we don't necessarily agree with.
Okay, yeah, that would be interesting. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.